We are continuing on Masechet Makkot, and we are on Daf Chaf Gimel Amud Aleph, 17 lines down from the top of the Amud by 2 dots. Today's Amud is being learned as a zchut for Refuah Shelma of Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, that should have full recovery. Be'ezrat Hashem Refuah Shelma. Amen. This week's learnings, the community has been graciously dedicated by the Dayan family, by Kohen family, by Shei family. It should be an ultimate zchut for all the mishpachot. Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. So says the Gemara. We spoke about the Retzuah, the makeup of the actual lash, the Malkut, that we had 4 layers of skin of a calf, and then you had a donkey hide going, 2 of those straps going through, sewing up these 4 pieces together. Now the Gemara is going to discuss, we mentioned this is because of Yadashor Koreu, V'achamor Evus Ba'alav. The Gemara said, even the donkey and the ox know their owner, and this Yeshaya Navi says our nation unfortunately does not recognize their owner, does not recognize where they ate from, to have hakarat tov. So in order to manifest that every sin is a rebellion against Hashem, and you become in some sense less than shor v'chamor, that's the reason that we use the retzuah from shor v'chamor. Now the Gemara says there is a practical halacha pertaining to giving lashes, and that is the size of the lash that you have to have. So says the Gemara, Yada tefach, that the handle of this has to be a tefach, and the width of it has to be a tefach, and the length of it, the Gemara is going to discuss. Amar Abaye, Shmamina kol chad vechad lefum gabe, because when you hit in the back, it has to end. The end of the lash has to come in front of the middle of the stomach. So, well, it depends how big the person is. If you have someone that is larger and wider structure, so then of course you need a longer lash than for someone very thin and petite. So it says Abaye, you see from here that every person has to have a custom-made lash for themselves. The Gemara says, Amar le Rava tells Abaye, Imke nafish lehu retzuot tuva. It'll be so many malkuts that they have to keep in the betin, so they don't need that. Ela Amar Rava said, we're more sophisticated than that. Avkata itle. There is a tie, a lock on the handle, and you could move the handle on the lash, thereby determining how long the lash outside the handle is going to be. So, for a larger individual, you bring it back out, and it will be a longer lash. For someone more petite, you will turn it up, and it will be a smaller piece of lash, and that would be one size fits all for everyone getting malkut. So says the Gemara, Kibai marfela, when you need it, you loosen it, you make it longer. Markinotot, so we learned the Mishnah that when you give lashes, he has to be on a slant. They used to have amud, that was a ma and a half, it was short pillar, and they would bend on put their hands on that, so their body is on a slant. And says the Gemara, they would take 2 in front and 2 in the back, rather 2/3 and 1/3 in the front. Now says the Gemara, how do we know? Amar of Kana Amar Kram, because the pasuk says ve'ipilo hashofet ve'ikau lefanav kedei rishato b'mitzbar. Because the pasuk says ve'ipilo hashofet ve'ikau lefanav kedei rishato. Kedei rishato is singular form. So you are giving in front of him lefanav kedei rishato. You see how we're learning the pasuk. Ve'ikau lefanav, you hit in front of him. Kedei rishato, that's singular form, right? Bemispar, it's when you're counting, at least there's 2 that you're counting. You don't count 1, right? 1 doesn't need to be counted 1, 2, 3, right? So mispar is plural form because the minimum of mispar is 2. So says the Gemara, Rish'a achat milefanav, a single one in the front, shte rishiyot ma'achorav, and 2 in the back. So you see the ratio is 1 to 2. So 1/3 is going to be in front, 2/3 is going to be in the back. That's how we know how we hit. We learn it from the pasuk itself. So says the Gemara, on the words of the Mishnah, En malkinoto, we said, the Gemara is going to ask now a question that seemingly we learn 2 halachot from one pasuk, right? So vehipilo hashofet, we now just mentioned that hipilo hashofet means that he has to be muteh. He has to be in a state of falling, so to speak. So which means he's not standing and he's not sitting and he's not laying. He is standing, leaning on a slant. And that we learned from the word vehipilo, that is on a falling position. Now the Gemara is going to learn another halacha of this malkut that we mentioned is 4 layers of skin of a calf. How do you know 4 layers of skin? Maybe 2, maybe 1, maybe 8. Who says 4? So it says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chisda Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Minai leretzuah shehi mechupelet. How do you know that the retzuah has to be folded twice? Shenemar veipilo. We learn it from the pasuk, from the word veipilo. Well, says, wait a second. We just learned another halacha from the same word veipilo. We learned that you have to be slanted. How many halachot can you learn from one word? Only one. So it says the Gemara, Hamibai legufe. Gemara says correct. But the truth of the matter is, if I would want to say that he has to be slanted, I would just say, Yateu. Im ken lichtov kara, Yateu. You should, instead of saying vehipilo, that you should drop him, right? You would say Yateu, slant him, right? Have him on an angle. So my vehipilo, so why does the pasuk go out of its way to say an unusual verbiage of vehipilo, that you're dropping him? Shema Amina Tarti is coming to teach you 2 things. That one, that it should be slanted, and second, vehipilo is lashon mechupal. Mechupal means it's folded. Says the Gemara, Hamake make beyado. So we said in the Mishnah that the Chazan of the Beit Knesset that is actually hitting, the one that gives administers the Malkut, he's doing it with Yado Achat, with one hand. You hold the lash and you hit it Bekol Kocho, with all of your strength, with one hand. So the Gemara says, can you go find like the biggest bodybuilder, like someone with real bulging muscles, and bring him to hit? You want strength, so let me show you strength. Let's go get this like massive person. Can you get a person like that? Or what type of person do you appoint to hit? You could get someone very small and very weak, or you could get someone very big and very strong. It's going to be a completely different level of malkut. Can I go choose the strongest man, or do I have to choose bedavka people who are not so strong? So it says the Gemara, we learned, Tan Rabbanan, En ma'amidin chazani lachasere koach v'yitere mada. When you want to give lashes, you choose people who are not so strong, but they're very smart. Right? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, afilu chasere mada v'yitere koach. It could be even people who are not so smart, but they're very strong. So what's the question over here? Rava Amar Rava, Kevate de Rabbi Yehuda mistabra. It's very much makes sense according to Rabbi Yehuda. Dichtiv lo yosif pen yosif. Right? But when he says you give him 40 lashes, the pasuk says, Arba'im yakenu lo yosif. Don't add to the number that you're supposed to give. Pen yosif, maybe chas v'shalom, he's going to add la'akoto al ele makaraba v'nikla achicha. So why do you have to warn twice? You told me pen lo yosif. Why do you have to say pen yosif? You're warning twice. If you're dealing with a smart person, do you need to warn them so many times? No. So it must be talking about a person that's not so smart and very strong. It seems like the Gemara says there's no third option. You're either very smart and weak, or you're very strong and you figured that out on your own. But the Gemara says, you see from here that the fellow is not very smart. Because otherwise, why do you have to say it so many times? Lo Yosif, Pen Yosif. So the Gemara says, if they're not really smart, that's why you have to warn them so much. If you say that these are smart people, you need to warn them so much. And Chachamim say, this becomes a coined sentence that's used many times all over the place. That you give alacrity, you give zrizut to those who already have it in their system. Those who don't have it, it doesn't help that much. And those who are already good, you give them chizuk to become better. Those who are already careful, you give them chizuk to be more careful. Now, it's very interesting because the Rambam holds that midoraita, really you have to administer 40 makot, right? This whole drasha that we have over here in the Gemara that we have been speaking about is only midarabanan. Midarabanan, they took one of those malkuts off, right? Now, what's the problem with that? In other words, Rambam learns, not like we learned in the Pashtut of the Gemara. We learned in the Pashtut of the Gemara that it's a drasha gemura. The drasha of the Gemara teaches you that is bemispar, arba'im yakenu bemispar, that's a mispar that is working its way up to 40, which is 39. And if you say that's drasha gemura, then the Torah itself is telling you to hit 39. Rambam doesn't learn the Gemara like that. Rambam holds, midoraita, how many do you hit? Full 40, right? But midrabbanan, they took one off. Now the question is, how in the world are Rabbanan allowed to delete a part of the Torah? How can you do that? Now, we understand that yesh koach beyat chachamim la'akor davar min haTorah b'shev al taseh, the Gemara says. Chazal have been given the power and the authority to even uproot something of the Torah b'shev v'al taseh, without doing anything. The Chag HaSukkot falls to be on Shabbat, first day. The Torah says you have to take lulav and etrog, and Chachamim say what? Don't do it. Rosh Hashanah falls to be on Shabbat. The Torah says Yom Teruah Lachem, right? Do blow the shofar. We learn from the three places that's mentioned, Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, and then you have to blow shofar. And what happens? Nothing. Yom was why? Because Chazal said not to. We understand that, but that is only when you are not uprooting the entire mitzvah. Well, you're not telling people don't blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah anymore. You're saying if it falls on Shabbat, we have concerns, so those years we do without. But you're not uprooting the mitzvah of blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah. You're not touching that, right? But when you change the tzura of a mitzvah altogether, you say from now on, we're not hitting 40, we're hitting 39, right? How can you do that? That doesn't work necessarily, right? So that's a question that has to be dealt with in a higher level. But as Khatam Sofer says, and we're going to be dealing with this issue, coming back to this Khatam Sofer, another at least once in this daf. Hazor says when the Torah says v'nikla achicha leinecha, that he's going to be lightened in your eyes, he's going to be embarrassed right? We'll see that the Gemara is going to say that sometimes that embarrassment by itself, if you tie him up and ready to hit him and he runs away, that already is considered that he was nikla achicha le'enecha, he's patur. Right? You don't lash him anymore afterwards. So it says that's considered like you already gave him some lashes, right? You already started administrating the makot. So it says the Chatam Sofer, the very fact that he has been tied in the betin and you rip his clothing and now he's naked and you're getting him ready to be hit, that by itself is the first malkut. That by itself is considered part of the lashes. So you have already one there plus 39, and that's how you have the number 40. So again, very creative but very powerful words of Chatam Sofer. So it says the Gemara. Therefore, you could say, says the Chachamim, that you could have even a strong person. It's not necessarily just a weak person that could administer the makot, but it could be administered by even a very strong individual. There is no problem with that. Tana, we learned, Keshehu magbia b'shtei yadav, when you raise up the malkut, the lash, you do it with two hands, but when you actually hit, you hit with only one hand because that's much stronger. When you lash with one hand, it's stronger than with two hands. This you do in order to do it properly. So that basically concludes the piece of administrating makot. Now we're going to be talking about the one that reads the psukim for the process of tshuva and how long is going to be taken depending on how many malkuts this fellow deserves, which B'ezrat Hashem we will continue in the days to come. Hazaku Baruch.